Welcome to another fun-filled weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidK80. Once again, at SidK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keita McGee on Twitter and at Keita_McGee on the IG.
And you can follow this show, Second City Sports, along with the other podcast programming, courtesy of War Media by simply searching for War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor, wherever you download your podcasts, including the iHeartRadio app. Type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. You can also visit our website at weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And we're also on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing. Look alive!
All right. Like, share, and subscribe.
Yes. Let's start off with the Chicago Bears. Yes. I know it's starting to get tiresome, but they still leave trails behind themselves, and we are left to pick up the pace of where those tracks are coming from. What do you mean, Sid? Well, let me tell you. If you watch that garbage of a press conference on Wednesday, if you have been listening to this program throughout the last few weeks, we told you what were they going to say and how they were going to say it if they would have made the playoffs. Well, they made the playoffs. They got their butts beat by the Saints, and now they're left cleaning up the mess and picking up dust. Lakeena, I'll start with you. Did anything surprise you from Wednesday's press conference?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I listened to it for like the first 10 to 15 minutes. I was like, okay, this is a bunch of word salad. And I had a little gif with, the Tasmanian devil with the salad, making salad and as only he can. I mean, for George McCaskey to say that, well, that 3-game winning streak showed resilience, and we'll ask Jason this because he was there at the presser. I'm sure I commend him and all the other, our buddies Kaylee, Charlie, Mark, Grody, Jeff Dickerson. I mean, for all them being at that presser and not want to like shake like those gentlemen, because I'm like, okay, I mean, they're not like, it was a bunch of like gibberish and hey, we're gonna, there was a big litmus test of what's to come. They showed resiliency and this and that. I mean, I just like, and if you saw like Bears Twitter and on social media and such, I mean, everybody's basically just, they're going to give up. A lot of people are saying that they're going to give their season tickets. Well, assuming that they'll be able to let people in Soldier Field this next season. I'm giving up my Bears fandom and blah blah blah. I mean, I guess it's just showing you, and like I said, we'll ask Jason to see how he feels, but it seems as if that they're content with mediocrity. And if you look at their schedule, I'll just finish this. If you look at their schedule next year, it's tough. It's tough. They got to play the AFC North and NFC West. Just about all those teams are pretty good. So you may be looking at another 8-8, or maybe at worst. So it's just going to be the same old, same old.
Yeah, that's the question right now. As Lakeena referenced, Jason Leisure, the beat writer for the Chicago Bears from the Chicago Sun-Times, will join us here in a few minutes to help dissect the mess that was being spewed out by management from Wednesday. And, of course, George McCaskey was all over Chicago radio. We'll break that down as well. And we'll review the 2020 season for the Bears with Mr. Leisure coming up in a few minutes. Getting back to what you were saying, Lakeena, we talked about this on our last episode. The Bears have a lot of work to do. You need to find a new quarterback potentially. It looks like Trubisky may not be here, in which we kind of also expect. Of course, he had a few parting shots for Matt Nagy during the last month of the season when they were winning about why wasn't his offense operating like this for much of the year, even though he was benched for Nick Foles. But getting back to management, one thing I wanted to point out, now I ask Jason when he comes on, his colleague Mark Potash, who does a great job at the Sun-Times, he asked a question for each Ted Phillips and George McCaskey. Let's hit on Ted Phillips, who's your president of the organization, who was your director of finance at one time in that organization, by the way. Do your homework, kids. Potash asked Ted, what was the contract status for Ryan Pace, the GM, and Matt Nagy, the head coach, and were their contracts aligned? Ted Phillips goes, I'm just paraphrasing a little bit, he goes, well, that's not part of this conversation. It doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does, because if you look at the performances, how they fared, it's not been good enough. As we said on our last episode, you look on the outside of the car, it looks good. You could drive it around, show it off to everybody. But you go look on the inside, are the parts working correctly? How long's these parts been in here? Does it have an oil change? Are the tires good? So when you look inside, it's not as pretty as it is on the outside. And the second question that Potash asked, it was intended for George McCaskey, which he later answered. But Potash asked, Ted Phillips jumped in about the fans. Well, since the fans weren't allowed in the building this season, Potash asked Ted Phillips, well, could you gauge the temperature of the Bears fandom since they weren't able to come to the games this year, as far as being upset with the team, their concerns with the team, and they were talking about fans not showing up in the past, about the no-shows, which looks bad for any team. Ted Phillips goes, well, I don't need to see any no-shows to gauge about the fans being mad at the team. We're happy with our season ticket holders and our suite buyers, and well, we know what they want, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're really out of touch. Mm-hmm. You're really out of touch. And then George McCaskey followed up with his version. He said, because he famously walks around the parking lot every few home games every year to get a real temperature of the fans. I think he wants to do it, but we all know that it's a business and money is the bottom line. He said, I don't know if he meant this as a joke or try to blow off Potsy, but he's like, he's been answering quote unquote hate mail the last few weeks. I said, anybody sending hate mail, you're stupid. You could be upset, but let's not go overboard here. So, but I just, the Bears management, when they have their feet to the fire, they do not respond well, but the heat is not turned on them hot enough. It just isn't. And this is why we've been experiencing mediocrity for the last at least 35 years since their last Super Bowl following the 85 season.
Well, I think the problem is that the Bears are still running like a mom and pop organization. And that's unfortunate, because you look at some of the other quote unquote mom and pops, you look at the Packers and the Steelers and the Giants. I mean, yeah, they're still, like generational, but they evolved. Their thinking has evolved. They're not thinking like, business people. They're thinking about football people too. And unfortunately, the Bears are still being run like a business. It's not being run like a football team. There are no football people running the Bears right now. And unfortunately for the Bears, they're kind of a national joke at this point. Unfortunately, well, I wouldn't say joke, but sort of like a national sort of like average, if you will. And I think that's been that's part of the problem the last few years. I mean, yes, they made some moves. Yes, they brought in Khalil Mack, but they had to give up a lot of draft picks to do it. They moved up to get Mitch Trubisky, which wasn't necessary, and basically John Lynch basically fleeced them, basically. So it's unfortunate that at this point in this juncture, that especially now, I think they're getting their money. The Bears, people at the top, ownership, they're getting their money from the TV contracts, and they'll look, as long as they're not like 3-13 or 1-15 or something like that. I mean, they won't make any real changes. And this is probably, unfortunately, that they would have been better, that the team would have been better off losing out, because at least then we would have gotten real change. Now you're gonna get Ryan Pace, or perhaps maybe you're gonna depend on him to pick a quarterback again, or make another draft pick. I mean, is this a lame duck season? I mean, we know the contracts, details of the players. Why can't we know about the coaches and the other personnel people? That's not right. And I don't blame fans for being upset about it. And I kind of feel like as if you have a lot of fans sort of giving up, sort of throwing up their hands and say, what, hey, you guys don't care about us. Why should we care about you?
You're listening to Second City Sports Weekend Edition, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown, as we discuss the Chicago Bears 2020 season in review. We'll have Jason Leisure from the Chicago Sun-Times on in a few minutes to help break the press conference down from this past Wednesday and review the season overall. Lakeena, you brought up the fans talking about throwing up their hands. It's almost sound like that old Marvin Gaye song, Inner City Blues. Makes me want to holler and throw up off my hands. Ow! I won't sing anymore. But let's be honest here. Throughout our lifetime, Lakeena, not telling our ages too much, even though I'm 29. But throughout our lifetime, we've seen and heard fans being upset. If you know, when you listen to local sports talk radio, you watching these shows on local TV, and now going through Bears Twitter and social media, and many fans express their opinions now since we're in a social media age. We get upset for a moment, but like I said before, the heat is not turned up to the fire on Bears management enough. We keep getting mediocre results. Let's be honest here, Lakeena, when the gates do open up, but I think they will, whether it be partial or full capacity in September of next season, let's just say 10,000 people gave up their season tickets for the Bears. You know, there'll be 10,000 people waiting to take those seats, and there's more waiting in line right now as we speak. So the Bears management are correct in this sense. Yeah, you can get upset. Yeah, we're with you, but we know that there are more people waiting for season tickets than ever before. They keep raising prices every year. You have a mediocre product at best, but we know that you guys will come to the games. We know that it's a social event. We know it's social status walking around the city of Chicago in the suburbs saying you have season tickets to Bears games. Let's just call it what it is.
Well, and I'm sure they'll be waiting. People will be waiting in the wings to make to get those tickets for people who probably don't want them. And like you said, there's always going to be people waiting in the wings. And look, we saw what happened with the Bulls. Why they made changes happen there. We saw with the Blackhawks years ago, especially not having television there. So I think will it have to take the fans spreading the message or going with the message? Who knows? But it'll be interesting to see how it goes if they do let fans in the stands next season.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see and discuss these issues and more surrounding the Chicago Bears. We have the Chicago Bears beat reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times, Mr. Jason Leisure. You can follow him on Twitter at Jason Leisure. Once again, at Jason Leisure. That's Liesser. Jason, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I'm good. I just signed up. I thought I was like early, and now I feel like I'm late. Like you guys already started.
Oh, no,
you're good.
No,
you're
not
good.
At all. Not at all.
We're good.
All right. I've been looking forward to this. I listened to you guys' most recent episode coming off the Saints game. I thought it was pretty good. You guys hammered a lot of the same things that have caught my attention.
Well, thank you very much for the support. We've been discussing here about the press conference that took place this past Wednesday at Hallis Hall. Of course, you were part of the media Zoom call. We all both watched and listened to it.
Boy, that went great, huh?
Yay!
Yeah.
Lots of fun. I'm sure that was.
Yeah. And as we talked about before you came on a few minutes ago, if you listen to our episodes of the last couple of weeks, we told you what the Bears management were going to say, however they're going to say it. Be honest with you, Jason, not just as a talking head, but as a fan, I'll be honest with you. If I really wanted to be upset, I couldn't because I knew what they were going to do. If you know something that's going to happen before it happens, you can't really be surprised. And that's what we experienced on Wednesday.
Sydney, we talk about this all the time with, at the Sun-Times, like with my colleagues, Patrick Finley and Mark Potash. You're always writing about what they should do versus telling people what they probably will do. So the whole thing for me in the past season, seeing this go so badly for the second year in a row, this isn't just a knee-jerk reaction. This has been 2 years or even 3 years. Really, if you really want to be honest, like how you could really pick some holes in this offense from the good season from 2018. They got a lot of help defensively. Trubisky in particular, had almost, he had a quarter of his touchdown passes in one game. The rest of it was not that great. But I'm sitting here saying this isn't headed the right way. They need to blow this up. They need to do the hard work of a rebuild. That being said, they probably won't. They're probably going to want to avoid all that. They don't want to go through a 3-13 season, which is usually the first thing that happens when you start rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to look for a reason to bring everybody back and keep it the same. And here we are, like, let's do nothing and hope that solves everything.
And Jason, it's interesting because if we all saw the game last Sunday, with the Saints, and you saw just the undiscipline, with Villa being thrown out and everything else that transpired even after that. What I mean, did you really at the presser? I know I'm like blabbling here, but did you really hear anything any different? Did you sort of already knew? I know you alluded to it earlier, but did you kind of already knew about what was gonna be said? Because it just seems like that George McCaskey and I guess the brass is gonna settle for mediocrity, and then you know what? Whatever. We're making our money, so who cares?
Yeah, they probably wouldn't say it that way, but I think that's what's happening. I mean, they're looking for a way to convince themselves of something that looks delusional to me. They're looking for a way to talk themselves into, hey, they're close. They're close. This, with a couple good bounces or maybe a good free agent sign, here, this will be the 12-4 team from 2018 again, and I just don't think that's going to be the case. You guys were talking in your podcast coming off the Saints game that you knew some things were going to happen at Hallis Hall this week. They didn't really. Really nothing happened. And that press conference is so bizarre, to me at least. I'm interested to hear what you guys thought of it. It's so bizarre because George McCaskey is, I mean, if you didn't know that the decision was that they were keeping these guys, you might think they were firing them based on the things he said. He would basically lay out all the things that everyone else agrees with that are not right with this team, and then we're keeping them. It really was convoluted to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Jason. Keeping with that theme of the press conference, we brought it up before you came on. Your colleague Mark Potash, who I think next to you is the best reporters in the city, sports reporters in the city. Yeah, he was definitely the star of the show. Thanks to Ted Phillips, who's the president of the Chicago Bears. Of course, Potsy asked a question about the contract status of Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. We are led to believe that Ryan Pace has next year, and that's it, and Matt Nagy has 2 years. So Potsy asked Ted Phillips what's the contract status of both those gentlemen. Phillips responded with, their status is not part of the discussion. I say, wait a minute, it is, especially holding this presser saying that they were supposed that we all thought they were going to be gone. You bring them back, and you're saying that their contract status is not important. Now I'm responding as a fan. They go talking about Ted Phillips in particular, and you could say Ryan Pace as well. That both of those guys just walk around, especially with that answer, like you're insulting the fans, you're insulting your customers. Like, we know more than you do, and there's nothing you could do about it. I was like, you cannot insult your fans and your customers that way. That really didn't sit right with me.
Yeah. I appreciate that you see it that way, because I think as a media member for the last 15 years or whatever it's been, I have found repeatedly that media access and how people treat the media, how coaches, GMs, players treat the media, no one wants to hear about it. No one ever wants to hear about it. But what they don't understand when they don't care about that the way that you do, what you just laid out, Sydney, is when they are doing that to me, they're doing it to you. When they're not giving me the answer, they're not giving you the answer. When they don't respect enough to give a real, insightful, truthful response to something I ask, they don't care enough to give it to you. Better access and better honesty and better accountability, all those things for the reporters means better communication and better content with the fans.
Well, it was word salad, basically, right? I'm sure, Jason, I'm sure listening to this, like, what kind of went through your mind, as Ted Phillips and George McCaskey and then Pace were all talking, like it kind of go like, okay, what's going on here? Like, are they're treating us like we're all stupid here? Football's stupid. I mean, what was your kind of like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's just take the dictionary and turn it upside down and shake it out and see what words come out. I mean, that's really what it was. It was not very. It made everything worse. Like, I mean, how many people do you know that think this is the right decision? Let's just start there. I don't think I know anyone that thinks this is a good move for the Bears. And then how much worse did they make that by basically telling you, Yeah, you're probably right, but we're going to do it anyway. This press conference did not help.
Jason Leisure, Chicago Bears beat writer for the Chicago Sun-Times, joining us here on Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Jason, let's transition over to on the field play right now, as the Bears have a lot of decisions to make this upcoming off season. Of course, we don't know what the salary cap is going to be. We all know that it's going to come down. How much, we don't know, because there were no fans in the stands this year. All these franchises, including the Bears, receive money courtesy of television. But I want to start with the quarterback position and Mitch Trubisky. Of course, he's the team started out 3-0. Of course, in that third game, he got yanked in that Atlanta game, which the Bears came back and won. Of course, they struggled with Nick Foles. It turned out that he wasn't really the answer. Of course, Mr. Trubisky gets back in there. The Bears win 3 out of their last 5 games, I want to say, to get into the playoffs. And Mitch looked good against the bad defenses, but against Green Bay in this last game against New Orleans, not so much. I want to ask you, has Mitch Trubisky played his last game in the Bears uniform?
If next year is going to be a success, then yes. If they cannot possibly be going for it the way that they are and saying we're keeping everybody, we're not going to rebuild, and then come back next season with him or Foles. There was this big conversation, I guess, nationally or on Twitter. I saw this was trending during that game that people were like, why don't they put in Foles? The rest of the country is very confused about Nick Foles. If Nick Foles didn't play in your city, other than Philadelphia, where he's a hero, then you probably don't realize how bad Nick Foles is. I mean, he had this phenomenal run. No one can ever take that away from him. It's one of the most incredible things anyone's ever done in any sport, in my opinion, to be the backup quarterback and come in and win all the playoff games, win the Super Bowl. That team had a top-notch defense, top-notch offensive line, top-notch running game. They had everything.
Yeah.
And he played well too. It wasn't just like riding their coattails. He played very, very well too. The rest of his career has been very underwhelming compared to that. He hit it at the right time, but there's, that's what, a month? I mean, there's 9 other years that show that that's not who Nick Foles is. Going into next season with Nick Foles as your quarterback, and he's the only one under contract, that would be a disaster. And I don't think that bringing back Trubisky would be much better. This idea that he fits their offense or they figured some things out late in the season, what they figured out was playing the Jaguars. And you don't get to play the Jaguars every week. It just doesn't work like that. So I think they've got to swing bigger. And they might still get it wrong. Like if you trade for Sam Darnold or you trade for Carson Wentz, maybe that doesn't work out. I can't tell you that either one of those guys is going to be a star. But that's trying. That's a good effort if you go get one of those guys. I think going into next season with Mitch Trubisky, it would be more delusional than anything we heard this week, thinking that is going to work.
What about Allen Robinson? I mean, we've all been saying, pay the guy, pay the guy. I mean, he scrubbed all his Bears stuff right before the season. They could perhaps maybe sneak in there and get the franchise tag on him. But if you're A-Rob, do you want to come back?
No, I don't. He spent his entire career playing with Blake Bortles, Nick Foles, and Mitch Trubisky. And God knows how he's been so good with that. Don't you wonder what he might do with a really good quarterback? And more importantly, don't you think he wonders what he might do with a great quarterback? I mean, somebody's gonna pay that guy. Now the Bears probably have to. The Bears probably have to make sure they keep him, though. Whether that's the franchise tag or whatever. You can't keep all this together and postpone the rebuild and say we're going for it and then let him walk out the door, because how many times, Sydney, over the last 2 years would you have said that he's the only good thing about their offense? The only good thing.
Every time he's been here. he's been the only consistent player on the offensive side. He's a top 10, probably realistically top 15 receiver in the National Football League. He's the number one option. He's played like ever since he's been here in the Bears uniform.
I find it impressive what Lakeena, you were saying about how he scrubbed his social media. Everybody remembers that day back in September. I think it was I think it was the second week of the season. He scrubbed his social media. He did, I'm told, and I reported, he did float the idea of a trade. He didn't go quite as far to demand a trade, but more suggesting it. Like, if you don't want to pay me, then you should trade me somewhere. That's the worst he did. That's the most trouble he caused. This is not like James Harden. This is a guy who did not get paid. And anyone that follows sports closely knows that it's not actually about the money. It's about the respect that comes with the money and feeling valued by a team. It's not that Allen Robinson needs $17 million a year instead of 16 so he can afford his beach house or something like that. He'll be fine financially either way. It's about respect. It's about getting paid what your peers are getting paid. And this guy, I mean, can you imagine going to your boss and saying, I deserve more money, and you being correct about that, and them saying, you know, too bad. And then you come in every day and keep your mouth shut and do excellent work anyway for that same boss every day, knowing that that guy didn't respect you enough, didn't value you enough to pay you what you're worth. You finished out your contract. You worked hard every day. The worst thing you did was take up some Bears logos off your social media and suggest the most logical thing in the world, which is, if you don't want to pay me, trade me to somebody who does want to pay me. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say he did a pretty good job with all this.
Yep. Staying with the Bears offense and the wide receivers, Jason, let's go to Anthony Miller. I was actually one of the few people that were excited that Ryan Pace moved up to get him in that second round. Showed some promise a couple years ago with 7 touchdowns or what have you. Last year he was injured, immature, but he started to turn around a little bit toward the end of last year. This year has been a big disappointment. Darnell Mooney, the rookie, has taken his spot, has really shown that he could be one of the best young receivers in time. But Anthony Miller did something stupid last Sunday by being kicked out of the game after being warned throughout the week not to stoop down to the Saints defensive backs' tactics. He did it anyway, being selfish, and caused the Bears. I think they were going to lose anyway, but you cost your team a chance for making it a more of a competitive game. Do you believe that Anthony Miller has played his last game in the Bears uniform?
No, he'll be back. And the reason is because he's very budget friendly. I think he's going to make, I wish I had this in front of me right now, but I think it's less than $2 million next year for the final year of his contract. He's still on his rookie deal. He is productive. As your number 3 receiver, you could do worse. But I heard you guys were hammering him on your last podcast too, and rightfully so. I mean, that is just unbelievable. I mean, I would have thought it was funny to hear that they had a meeting on a Wednesday morning, that on somebody's calendar, Sydney, it says meeting about CJ Gardner-Johnson tactics or antics or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
That was on the schedule for that day. That even if it had worked, I would have found that funny, that they held a meeting about one particular guy instigating on the other team. And then the fact that it didn't work is just mind-blowing. That Anthony Miller, I mean, you could rehash this entire thing going all the way back to, I think it was November when they played the Saints. And Anthony Miller watched one of his closest coworkers, one of the guys in the receiver room, do the same thing. He saw it all happen. And then they held a meeting about it in which they showed video clips of things that CJ Gardner-Johnson does and says, look, here's what he does. Here's what he's going to do to you. He'll do this. He'll say this.
Yep.
These are his tactics. Don't get suckered by it. Then you have Anthony Miller coming out and being asked about it by the media and saying, First off, when the name was mentioned, Anthony Miller goes, "Who? Come on, man! Come on! We should have, Sydney, Lakeena, we should have been able to tell right then there was going to be a problem. Answer right there should have told you there was going to be a problem. For all of, and then he says like blah blah blah, like you can't fall for that, and then boom, what does he do? Fall for it. This guy is so good. He's so talented. Anthony Miller, if you watch him run, it's unbelievable how fast he is. But there's so much more to that than. There's so much more to making it in the NFL or making it as a professional athlete in general than just being physically gifted. And this was the second summer in a row going into the season where we were told, hey, Anthony Miller kind of didn't know the plays last year, but now he does. Don't worry about it. Whenever you hear that, whenever you hear, hey, so-and-so used to be undisciplined, but now he's not. It's like they're finally being honest about what happened last year. Usually that problem is not fixed. They say, oh, this guy had really bad eating habits, but he's fixed that now. It usually isn't. Sometimes it is. Sometimes those guys turn it around, but that's usually a sign that there's going to be more problems in the future.
Let's go to the defensive side for a second. I mean, they were great at times, but they were worse at times. Where do you see this defense? I mean, I know Akeem Hicks is sort of the heart and soul of it. Khalil Mack's, doing his thing. Robert Quinn, I mean, we've only mentioned him maybe 2 or 3 times this whole season. I mean, yeah. Where do you see this defense next season?
The window is closing unless they make some moves. I mean, it's still the same guys. It's a little bit like the Blackhawks. You could go to a Blackhawks game and watch all the same guys that won all the titles, but they're not what they used to be. And you're seeing that now where some guys are aging and they're not ever going to get younger. They're going to continue to get old. Danny Trevathan is going to be 32 next season. He's not going to go back to 30 or 29 or whatever. I think that you're seeing between injuries, between departures and free agency over the years, and, a mistake like Robert Quinn. I don't know how you could call that anything other than a mistake, to give him the second biggest contract of any player in free agency last year and have it give you 2 sacks. That's not working. And I don't know how you fix that. There's gonna be some pain to fix that. For example, you mentioned Akeem Hicks. He's still really good, but they owe him. They got to either pay him. I believe I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right now, but I believe they can pay him $12 million next year, or they can take a $1.5 million cap hit to cut him. And I think if you're the Bears, you need that money. I mean, as good as Akeem Hicks is, and as hard as it would be to lose him, you need to spend that money somewhere else right now. They sunk all their money this year into that pass rush. Hicks, Mack, and Quinn. That accounts for 25 to 30% of their payroll, I believe, or 25 to 30% of the salary cap. And that actually is fine as a strategy if it works. If you can spend like that on a pass rush is that important, that it's worth it, because it changes the game for the opposing quarterback. It's how you get takeaways. It's how they got takeaways like crazy in 2018.
Yeah.
But if you spend all that money there and then it doesn't work, you don't have the right guys. Robert Quinn is not the right guy. Then where does it leave you everywhere else? If you've put all your money into that and that doesn't work, you've been saving money at all these other places, trying to save money at all these other places. You're in big trouble, and that's what happened this year.
Yeah.
Chuck Pagano, now their ex-defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, all of a sudden retires following the game last Sunday against the Saints. Did you see this coming, Jason? Because I didn't. Of course, reading through people's thoughts through social media, you could take it for what it's worth. And then myself talking to a couple of people outside of here, I got the sense that some people's opinions are that Chuck Pagano was made the scapegoat, but not really made the scapegoat by him retiring, and he saw some things that may come downhill that he doesn't want to be a part of. What was your thoughts about Pagano retiring following the loss to the Saints last Sunday?
I think you're on it, Sydney. I think that's his job would have been in question going into the offseason anyway. Not entirely because he did such a horrible job or anything like that, but they've got to make somebody the scapegoat. They got to be able to say they did something. And if you're not going to fire Pace and you're not going to fire Nagy, Chuck Pagano is kind of an easy target. That's an interesting job now. I'm curious what you guys think about that job. Would you want to be taking this job right now? Defensive coordinator of the Bears. It's a defense that has been in decline. Clearly, it's inarguable. Statistically, it's been in decline, but it's still really good. There's still some really good personnel there. But there's big opportunity. But you're also walking into a situation where it's win or get fired for the entire staff. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to have trouble filling that job, or is that a job people will want?
Well, Wade Phillips tweeted earlier that, hey, I want to get back into it. But if you're Wade Phillips, would you want to get back into that? Especially with, like you said, they may release Hicks because they may not have a choice. Quinn has been very consistently productive, so maybe a young defensive coordinator maybe want to prove himself if they do decide to fire everybody, and he could probably be considered for the job. But if you're a veteran DC or looking for to kind of move up, I wouldn't take the job. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Lakeena, on that one. If you're a young up and coming coordinator, you would take that job because one is the Chicago Bears, the charter franchise of the NFL, and number two, you'll still have some talent left over. How much we don't know because of the cap. But if you're a young up and coming to make your mark in the league and stuff up your resume, make your resume look good, I would take the job. I think they're going more in that direction. Like you said, given the situation that you could be let go by this time next year, the Bears don't do anything significant.
It's still a good defense. I think people get overly frustrated and overreact, and they say, oh, the defense is horrible. It's not horrible. It's just not great anymore. It's good. It's top half of the league. It's maybe even the 10th best defense in the league. So it's not like it's terrible. It's still a good defense. But the way this team was built was have the best defense in the league, have like a top 3 defense to overcome how bad you are offensively. And that's where people have gotten frustrated. But the Bears are still a good defense. When you think about taking a job as a defensive coordinator, it's not usually going to be this good of a situation. It's usually going to be you're taking over a disaster somewhere else where someone else has gotten fired because it's one of the worst defenses. You would be inheriting from day one still a good defense, and your job would not be to turn nothing into something. It would be to turn a good defense back into a great defense. So that'd be attractive, I think.
Probably so. Now, what about Cordero Patterson? We've been saying that he's not a running back. I don't know why they keep trying to like showcase him as a running back. He is not. So, kick returners, we know how good he is there. So if he does come back, are they going to be using him more on the offensive side next season?
Probably not. Because like you said, it didn't work very well this year. I mean, everybody else saw what you saw, Lakeena. It wasn't. It's so confusing with him because there might not be a more talented football player on the entire team. He's so, like, you look at him and you see some of the things he does. His athletics. Who runs that fast at that size? That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't work for some reason. For whatever reason, he's not really a very functional offensive player. He's not ever been a consistent threat offensively, I don't think. Maybe earlier in his career with Minnesota, but even then, he's never been what you thought he could be with his talent. Special teams wise, you mentioned him as a returner. I always think of him like trying to catch a punt with Cordero Patterson coming down would put the fear of God into me. I would be that. I think few things in life are scarier than probably staring down Cordero Patterson chasing down a punt. He's really, really good at that too. Mm-hmm. He keeps earning these All-Pro and Pro Bowl selections because of his return ability on special teams, but he's also an incredible coverage guy. But he made $5 million. I think he was $10 million over the last 2 years. They can't afford that. If he wants to come back like closer to the veteran minimum, that'd be the only way I could see him back with the Bears next year.
Heading down the home stretch for Chicago Bears beat writer for the Chicago Sun-Times, Jason Leisure, right here on the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Going back to the defense, Jason, I want to focus in on Eddie Jackson. Of course, after a stellar first couple years in the league, he struggled this year. Of course, early in the season, he had a couple of touchdowns that were taken off the board because of penalties. And, of course, he struggled. That continued the snowball downwards for his struggles this year. Give us your thoughts on Mr. Jackson. Do you think he'll have a bounce-back year next year?
I think it depends what's around him. I think that he has made his career off being this big play takeaway guy, that he's been free to take some chances because he's had great pass rush up front. Mm-hmm. That limits the amount of time the quarterback can sit there and pick apart the defense. He's had great coverage by cornerbacks with Fuller and Prince Amukamara and Buster Screen. And he's had the right guy, at least, at times, he's had the right guy playing with him at safety to free him up to do all the things that he does. What the Bears needed more this year was a more fundamentally sound, solid guy in the secondary. When Buster Screen is in decline and then injured for half the season, you have a rookie at corner in Jalen Johnson, and the pass rush is not nearly what it was. So the coverage is going to be like good, solid, tight coverage and good, solid tackling. Those were the premiums that the Bears needed this year. And that's not really how Eddie Jackson has become a star player in the league. So I don't know that you can even blame him so much for that. He would have had to change his game and be far less of the dynamic playmaker that the Bears want him to be and that they paid him to be. But I think I wouldn't want him to change his game permanently, but I think there would need to be some awareness of what it needed to be this year and make some, you need to adapt to the situation that is rather than the situation that you wish it was.
Let's go to their O-line for a second. I mean, they kind of finally got it right a little bit. So, with various opt-outs and injuries and whatnot. So where do you see the O-line next season? Because they kind of they did their best. I mean, with all the changes and all the the adjustments. So what do you think about the O-line and what changes need to be made there?
I think, and O-line, almost anybody, not everybody, but almost anyone that tells you that they know something about offensive line play is lying. It's the most complicated thing in the sport, and I would be such a fraud if I told you I understand offensive line play really well. I don't. From what I can tell, what I think is that they're good in the middle with James Daniels coming back. So Daniels and Mustipher and Whitehair as your what would it be? What would it be? Whitehair at left guard, Mustipher at center, and Daniels at right guard. But I don't think they're good at tackle. And Bobby Massey is a guy that is going to be gone, I'm sure, as a cap cut and performance-based cut too. But Charles Leno at left tackle, I don't think that gets the job done either. And this is where you get into a really interesting conversation about what they do in the first round, because in the first round, if you have a chance to take a quarterback who's good, and I don't know that they will necessarily at 20, but they could trade up. If you have a chance at one of those quarterbacks that you're really high on, that's probably the right move long term. But that doesn't help you this year, almost certainly doesn't help you this year. Rookie quarterback is not what you want to bet this whole thing on. Offensive lineman, however, you could find a tackle who could start right away. That happens every year. There's first round picks. There's rookies that can play left tackle, right tackle, pretty much right away. And that's something that would help them long term too. There'd be nothing really wrong with that. So that'll be an interesting thing to see what they do with that first round pick.
Sticking with the Bears offense, Jason, let's go to the running back position and David Montgomery. Of course, last year he was learning the position. I thought he got better as the year went on. This year, of course, Matt Nagy was stubborn and committing to running the football again. But once they got going in the month of December in the drive for the playoffs, they committed to the run. We saw what Montgomery could do. He was one of the league leaders in missed tackles. And so I really like his running style. Give us your assessment of Montgomery. Do you think he's finally learning how to play the position?
Yeah, and I think he's fine. I think that just like quarterbacks, there's probably a handful of quarterbacks that will be great no matter what, and no matter what's around them, no matter what kind of talent they have around them. And there's probably 3 to 5 running backs that you could say the same thing about. There's 3 to 5 running backs in the whole NFL any given year that are really just a cut above and will succeed no matter what kind of offensive line problems they have. They're going to be good no matter what. David Montgomery is not one of those guys. He's one of those guys in that next group of totally interchangeable running backs that if the offensive line's good, he'll probably be pretty good. If the offensive line's not good, he's not going to really be able to do much. That's going to be 31 yards on 10 carries if the O-line's not good.
Now let's talk about the Bulls. I mean, the Bears are going to be at 20. Do you think they go?
We can talk about the Bulls too, man.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, they're
might be more interesting.
I'm about to say the Sox. Yeah, the Sox going up with them than they are with the Bears. We're sticking with the Bears for a second, but where do you think they go at 20? I mean, do you trust Pace to get a quarterback? I mean, there's not going to be a lot of the top-notch guys are going to be gone. Do you go O-line? Do you wait until the second or third round to get a quarterback? Where do you think they go?
If I I still am having trouble putting myself in a position of thinking about what they are doing this year in terms of trying to run it back with an 8-8 team rather than what they should have done. But if I'm going to put myself in Ryan Pace's shoes, I think the best balance of short-term and long-term thinking would be to draft a starting tackle at number 20. You'll probably get a guy that could start right away that helps you now and helps you long-term, whereas a quarterback at that spot just doesn't do anything for you in 2021. And as much as Ryan Pace says he'll do the right thing and weigh the responsible choice of long-term, it's hard to believe. I mean, no general manager in his position does that. Every one of them goes for broke, does everything they can to win in 2021. And if you take a left tackle, for example, or a starting tackle, maybe that's the starting right tackle if you're going to probably end up having, because of financial reasons, to bring back Charles Leno, that does meet the requirement of helping now and helping later. And then maybe you take a quarterback later, you take a flyer on a guy in the 3rd or 4th round, see if you can develop that guy. But your real next franchise quarterback would be first round of 2022.
Last question from me, Jason. Let's go broader into the NFL playoffs. Of course, you have two great games on Saturday, two very good games on Sunday. Do you see an upset in any one of those four games, or do you expect the favorites to move on to the conference championship games via Kansas City or Buffalo, what have you? Do you see an upset?
Well, who's the upset in Buffalo versus Baltimore? Because those teams look pretty even to me.
I don't think they're. You can't really say.
No,
I'm
not talking about that game. No, there won't be an upset in that game.
If I said Tampa, does that count as enough of an upset to say Tampa over the Saints? Maybe.
Not really. I mean,
technically no, but it would be because the Saints swept it during the regular season.
And plus the second meeting, they blew them out. So
right.
The Chiefs are not losing. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to lose as good as the Rams defense is. The thing that I came away with from the Bears-Saints game is because I already knew what I needed to know about the Bears, and Sunday just was more of the same. But the thing I came away with thinking about the Saints was, I don't know, man. I don't know if they can get to the Super Bowl. They're good. They're really good. But Drew Brees, as good as he is, he can't really throw, and he can't really run. So as good as their defense is, if someone is able to beat their defense, if someone's able to put 28 to 35 points on the Saints defense, I really wonder if the Saints can keep up with that. And there's definitely a guy who can do that. It's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers can do any, there's no defense that I would bet against Aaron Rodgers on. And so I'm coming out of that game. It made me wonder if you come down to a Saints-Packers game next week, can the Saints keep up with Aaron Rodgers? And I would bet no. So that similarly would give me some trepidation about them this week against Tampa, because Tampa's really good too. Tampa's got a good defense, and Tampa's got a good quarterback. What would you guys pick? Let's say you've got to pick one upset, and Tampa does count as an upset. You got to give me something. All right, so I'm gonna say Tampa. If I have to pick one, I'll take Tampa. What about you, Lakeena?
Yeah, if I had to pick one, I'll say Tampa, because I don't think
I picked Tampa. You can't pick Tampa.
Oh, okay.
No, you can pick Tampa. I'm just
well, yeah, because that's really like the only thing I could see an upset. I mean, Baltimore and Buffalo are even, so you can't really count that as an upset. I don't see the Rams being the Green Bay, especially with the weather forecast. It's supposed to be like really cold, and so I probably have to pick Tampa, even though technically that wouldn't be an upset, though. That's just me.
Well, I'm sure the Saints are favored, right?
Yeah, they are. Oh, they are. They are.
Yeah, that'd be an upset. I mean, we're getting into playoffs. It's not like you're going to have like the Jaguars versus the Chiefs. They're all going to be pretty good games. I think. Who are you picking, Sydney? What's your upset? You got to pick one upset.
Be honest with you, I would go with the Rams only because I know Aaron Donald is nicked up, but he's healthy enough to play. And if he makes an impact, if the Green Bay offensive line can neutralize him, the Rams wouldn't be anything. But the Rams will have to stick to running the football like they did last week against Seattle. And, of course, they got to bring pressure on Rodgers. And it's all led by Aaron Donald. If Aaron Donald could get any type of pressure, we'll see what happens. Leonard Floyd, former Bear, by the way, we all know that he didn't do anything here with the Bears, one, because he was injured. But number two, he always had his best game against the Packers. And let's just say Aaron Donald somehow neutralized. Let's say if Leonard Floyd can come through.
The game I want to watch is probably the two games I'd be interested in are the Bucs-Saints game that we talked about. But the game I really want to watch would be the Chiefs and the Browns. And I don't think that the Browns can beat them, but I just think it's going to be a fun game. I think both teams are going to score a lot. That's what I like. I'm not really interested in watching some kind of 10-3 game or something like that. I want to see both teams in the 30s or 40s.
Hey.
I want to see fireworks. That's going to be fun. And so I think, like, if you get Chiefs-Browns and it's like 48-38, that's a fun game.
We might get that. We might get that, though. We might get that.
I hope we do.
Yeah, well, I mean, Baltimore and Buffalo. I mean, like I said, they're pretty much even. So you just flip. That's a coin flip. So it doesn't. It wouldn't either way. But I know Lamar Jackson said he has never played in the snow. I mean, there's a lot of snow in Buffalo right now. But their rush defense, though, the Bills. So if they commit to running the ball, the Ravens, I mean, they might pull away. I'm just saying.
Which of those teams would have a better chance playing with Kansas City next week? Probably the Ravens, right?
Yeah, probably the Ravens, I think.
Yeah.
Sid?
I think Ravens would give you the best game next week.
Yeah.
I think it would because of the quarterback matchup. But I said this before this. I picked the Buffalo Bills to represent the AFC. I think they are really overlooked. And Josh Allen
to represent the AFC.
Yeah, I did. Seriously,
yeah,
I did. Yeah,
you're talking about to
seriously,
beat
I
the
did.
Chiefs.
Yeah, he did.
Seriously,
he did.
I did. Yeah.
He did.
But they've really been overlooked all season. Their defense is better than what people give it credit for. And of course, Josh Allen's been balling out all year. And I really like their running back in Devin Singletary. Yes, they can score a lot of points. I think they can keep up with Kansas City. But if those two should meet up in the AFC Championship game, it's going to come down to, can Buffalo not turn the ball over, and can the Buffalo Bills defense force a turnover or two? Because if they can, sky's the limit.
I used to cover the Dolphins, and so I covered them during Josh Allen's rookie season with the Bills. I saw him play twice that year. And I don't say this to be like, hey, look how smart I am. I just say this to like illustrate a point of what you'd be looking for out of Mitch Trubisky that you didn't see, or what you might be looking for in the future with another Bears young quarterback. He didn't have a great rookie season. I really liked him when I watched him play, because number one thing, more than anything else, I know he's got mechanic problems. He's got some other things that they wanted to fix, but he was not scared at all. He knew he was super decisive. He knew right where he wanted to go with the ball. Some of those decisions were questionable at the time, but I think he's gotten way better at that. He was not scared of the job. He did not at all look too small for it. He looked like he had some things to learn, but he looked like he had the guts for it, and I liked that. And I think that's what you don't see a lot from Trubisky, with a lot of these check downs and very careful play and things like that. And I think you'd want to look for something like that next in the draft. Is a guy, Mahomes has been like that too. You're just very decisive, very aggressive, not afraid of anything. That's a good start for a quarterback.
Lakeena?
Cool. Okay, so how about your Super Bowl pick then? Since we're kind of going into that, okay, you don't have to tell us who your winner is. Just tell us, who's your dream Super Bowl matchup?
I think a great Super Bowl matchup, a very entertaining Super Bowl matchup to watch, is going to be Chiefs-Packers. And that's not profound because those are the number one teams in each conference. So, I mean, that's like the easiest thing I could say. But I think that'd be a really entertaining, really good matchup, a really good game. And the Chiefs
all right.
Oh.
They're always going to win. They're going to win like the next 10. I mean, they're set up for a long time.
That's right. He said it and dropped the mic on that. We'd like to thank Mr. Jason Leisure, Chicago Bears beat reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times. You can follow him on Twitter at Jason Leisure. Once again, at Jason Leisure. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. This conversation was great and it was fun. You put us on our toes, and we love it. We do it to our guests, and that's what makes the show so fun. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep bringing that heat to the Bears management. We love your reporting, and everybody over there at the Chicago Sun-Times. Thanks again for joining us, and you have a great weekend. We can't wait to have you on again soon.
Oh, thank you so much, and this was great. I really appreciate you guys having me.
No problem. We got to do this again. Stay safe, you and your family.
Yeah. All right. You guys too.
All right. And that was Jason Leisure of the Chicago Sun-Times. He covers the Bears for that great newspaper publication. Lakeena, let's take a quick 20-second timeout.
Yep.
On the flip side, we'll get into the James Harden trade. We'll talk about a little college basketball. We'll get into the little Bulls as well. We'll mention the national championship, and we'll give out our picks for NFL Division playoff weekend. Listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Welcome back to the second half of the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, I am Cindy Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and Keena_McGee on the IG.
And you can follow this podcast along with the other podcast programming from We Are Regal Radio by simply searching for War on Anchor. Wherever you download your podcast, make sure you search for War on Anchor. And we're also on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. Now, look, Keenan, we're going to talk about the James Harden trade in the Chicago Bulls this hour with Ricky O'Donnell from SB Nation. He's the NBA editor and writer over there. So we're going to get into more in-depth conversation with him coming up later on in this segment. But before he joins us, let's quickly get into our picks for NFL Divisional weekend. And first off, we'll start off with the Saturday game at 3:40 p.m. on Fox. That's the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers at cold Lambeau Field. Who do you have winning this one?
I think it's going to be close. I think if the Rams stick to their running game, let Cam Akers sort of move the chains and keep Aaron Rodgers in the offense off the field. I know Aaron Donald is good to go. I'm sure his ribs are still going to be bothering him. I think it's going to be close, but I think, it's going to be cold in Lambeau. I know Lambeau weather or Packers weather or whatever, but I think the Packers, they're itching to kind of get back into it. So I like the Chiefs. They've only had 1 week off, so the rest probably shouldn't be as obvious as the Chiefs will be. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but I think the Packers, but it's going to be close.
I'm going with the Rams, and one matchup to look out for is Jalen Ramsey versus Devontae Adams. I know DK Metcalf has some respectable stats last week for the Seahawks, but Ramsey did a heck of a job on him. That was a heck of a battle to watch all game long. It's going to be another battle between Ramsey and Devontae Adams. So I'm looking out for that matchup right there. As we talked about with Jason Leisure from the Sun-Times, and let's see if Leonard Floyd and some of the other guys in that linebacker core for the Rams can step up. And like you said, Aaron Donald is limited because of the rib injury. He's going to play, but you got to have some other guys on that Rams defense to step up. So we'll see how that shapes out there. Saturday night, 7:15 p.m. Central Standard Time on NBC is the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. This is still going to be exciting, Lakeena. The Titans were dismissed by the Ravens last week. Of course, Buffalo, they won their game against the Indianapolis Colts last week in a close one, which was one of the top two exciting games from Wild Card Weekend last week. But this week is a whole nother week. I'm going with Buffalo on this one, but it's going to be close.
Look, this could be probably the matchup of the weekend, I think, because of the fact that they're so evenly matched. I mean, it's really going to depend on whose side can kind of slow the other down. Like I said, that rush defense for Buffalo is probably their only weakness, I think. So I'm gonna pick the Ravens. It won't be an upset. Let's make that clear. If Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, and Hollywood Brown, if they can kind of be that facilitator, and they'll probably run the ball, I think, more. Since that is actually, like I said, that's actually the one weakness. So if they do that, I think they'll probably end up winning it. And I think, look, yes, they were able to exercise those defenses against the Titans, but I think that they want more. And look, Josh Allen will probably do his thing. Devin Singletary will do his thing too. If the Ravens defense can slow down Stephon Diggs and that Bills offense, it could come down to a field goal. So I'm gonna pick the road team here. I'm gonna pick the Ravens.
Like I said, I'm going with Buffalo. Watch out for this matchup. You brought up Stephon Diggs, Lakeena. He had a great game last week against the Colts in the wild card round. It's going to be Stephon Diggs versus Marcus Peters. We all know Marcus Peters, kind of like Eddie Jackson. They like to take chances to create turnovers and make game-changing plays. Marcus Peters did that last week on the road at Tennessee before dancing on the local and all that. But watch out for that matchup. That's going to be fun. So that's a matchup that fans should keep an eye on. Let's head to the Sunday games. Starting at 2 p.m. on CBS, you'll have the Cleveland Browns, quote-unquote, upsetting the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road last Sunday night. They'll travel to Kansas City to face the Chiefs. Will this be a contest? I don't know, but I think Cleveland will show up and give it all they have. But watch out for Kareem Hunt. This is his return to Kansas City after being let go by that ball club a couple of years ago, thanks to some off-the-field stuff we won't get into. But looking at this game, I think it's going to come down to the running games for both teams. I have Kansas City winning this one in a kind of a runaway, but not quite.
Yeah, I feel the same way here. I think, look, the Chiefs, they haven't played in 2 weeks. A lot of their starters, and Mahomes and Hill and Kelsey, they all haven't played in 2 weeks. So they'll probably be a little bit rust there. So I think Cleveland will be able to take advantage of that early on. But I think the Chiefs will wake up the second half and say, you know what, let's get into gear. And I think, like you said, it's going to be close. It's not going to be a blowout, but I think the Chiefs will do just enough to hang on and win.
Now, of course, the last game for Sunday will be at 5:40 p.m. on Fox. This will probably be the last time we'll get to see this matchup on the field. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will travel to New Orleans to take on the Saints down at the Bayou, of course. Tampa Bay won at Washington against the football team last Saturday night. Of course, the Bears took care of the Saints took care of the Bears last Sunday afternoon, 21-9. I think the Saints will win this one, Lakeena. And I know this should be Drew Brees' last hurrah. But Tampa, they lost to the Saints twice during the regular season. That's why the Saints won the NFC South. I think it's going to be closer than what people expect. Now, I do expect to see some scoring for both teams in this one. I'm ready to see a PlayStation-type game down in the Dome.
We'll probably get that too, right? I mean, but both – the first matchup was really close, but the second one, not so much. 38-3 in Tampa. It's going to be close, though. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that, just because these are divisional foes, and it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. So look, we saw what happened with the Rams and the Seahawks. Granted, they split their season series, but even still, it's hard to beat your divisional foe because you know them so well. So I'll pick the Saints too, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa pulls off the upsets. I'm air quoting here, upsets. Because it really wouldn't be an upset though, right? I mean, these are divisional foes. I mean, yeah, their second meeting was terrible, but you know, it's okay. I mean, you know, I think, look, it's going to be interesting, though. Can the Saints defense slow down Tom Brady? They've done it before. But can the Bucs defense slow down Drew Brees and the Saints? Because remember, for the first, half, maybe 3/4, half of that game against the Bears, they didn't look good, the Saints offense. So maybe the Bucs defense could take advantage of that.
Yeah, let's see if they can. The one matchup for you guys to pay attention to is the defensive lines for both the Saints and the Bucs. The Bucs defense is very underrated. You saw how they got after Tyler Heineke, even though he had a good game in his playoff debut. That Bucs defense ramped up the pressure, especially late in that game. On the other side for the Saints, their defense didn't have to do much. I know they kind of been up and down all year, but we'll see it, especially led by Cam Jordan, if they can put consistent pressure on Tom Brady. Even though Brady has thrown for 40 touchdowns during the regular season this year, we all know that he's been missing wide receiver here and there. And you're starting to see what happened is in last year with New England, started missing some guys easy and wide open just like that. And if that happens again, it's going to be a long day for the Bucs.
Well, maybe we'll see how this game goes.
Yes, it will. So it should be fun. So we're set for NFL division round weekend, and those are our picks. I did pick the Saints. If you guys are listening exclusively via the podcast, of course, if you watch on YouTube, I have my Drew Brees jersey hanging up behind me. So we'll see what happens with those games over the weekend. So enjoy those games. For football, as we now transition over to basketball, of course, Lakeena, the NBA is just like the NFL. It never seems to amaze us with the off-the-court news. James Harden's been acting like a fool all off season, now carrying it on to this 2021 season. He's got his wish. He was traded to the Brooklyn Nets the other day. Of course, Brooklyn had to give up, I believe, 4 future first-round picks. Yeah. Of course, in that deal, Victor Oladipo was traded from the Indiana Pacers to the Houston Rockets. Now they have their quote-unquote big three with him, John Wall, and DeMarcus Cousins. Of course, DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall both been saying to the Houston media that changes need to be made. There were problems. Of course, the problem was James Harden. Now Harden gets his wish playing with his buddies Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving has quote-unquote gone missing for personal reasons this past week. We'll see if and when he returns. Lakeena, I appreciate guys like Kyrie being in their own space, being their own person to an extent. But when it starts to affect your team, your teammates, and the organization, I'm kind of looking at you halfway with a crazy eye. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know that we've known since he was at Duke, right? He kind of marched to the beat of his own drummer. You know, he has his own mind, and you appreciate that. You appreciate him being very nuanced and stuff like that. Now, this whole saga, I mean, look, he was fined 50 grand for, breaking the protocols because I guess he was at a family party and he didn't have a mask on, and he also forfeited his salary for the games that he missed during that period. We'll see if he's able to come back tomorrow. If he continues he's been tested negative, so far. So he has to continue to keep doing it in order for him to be eligible to play. But I mean, I feel bad for Steve Nash. I mean, what a way to have your first coaching gig that you had to deal with one guy who, basically kind of, bullied his way out of his previous city. Now you're dealing with a guy who, I don't know if it's mental or physical, or maybe he's just, I don't know what's going on with Kyrie in his head. And then you have injury issues too. You lose Dinwiddie for the year. You had to trade Karis LeVert, who's was having a really great season for the Nets. So
yeah,
you're kind of like, it's now with this, big three in Jersey, in Brooklyn, I mean, it's basically finals or bust. And if not, you're kind of sort of, stuck in a rock and a hard place. You had to basically mortgage your future. You had to trade a lot of picks to get Harden. So it's basically finals or bust for them.
And this is what the situation was when you brought over Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. If you're GM Sean Marks of the Nets, this was what's the situation a year ago. Of course, both guys were hurt. And even though you were invited to the bubble, we all knew that the season for the Nets were basically lost. Of course, you fired Kenny Atkinson. That was part of the plan last year. That's what happened. And so this is what they were building up to the moment of now. Now, like you say, it's championship or bust. I think I picked Brooklyn during our NBA/Bulls preview show to beat Boston and represent the Eastern Conference against the Lakers in the finals. I think the thing that you can question about the Nets right now is their bench. Like you said, all those young guys that they developed over the last few years, most of them are not there anymore. And I think our buddy Lamont Scott pointed it out before the season kicked off. Steve Nash is a rookie head coach. When problems arrive, how can you handle it? Yes, you have Mike D'Antoni, his former head coach back in the day in his playing days. Mike D'Antoni is the assistant, but how are you able to handle these things? If it implodes, it's going to be trouble. And I know that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, both, but mostly Durant, the real reason why he didn't sign with the Knicks because of all the pressure from the New York media and delivering them trying to deliver that franchise a championship for the first time since 1973. Going to Brooklyn, there won't be that much pressure. Now, with the big three, with the Brooklyn Nets, yes, they're like the White Sox. They're the quote-unquote second team in town. But you have the new big three in the NBA. All the pressure is going to come from for you now, not just from the local media, but from the national media as well. Probably more national media because of the big names for playing for that franchise, and it's just something they're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, like I've been saying, it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. I mean, I think if you're Steve Nash, it kind of helps having that mentor there, having your former coach be sort of that sort of like that mentor to kind of lead you, because he kind of had to deal with personalities too in some of the places he's been in. Also Houston just recently, so it'll be interesting. What they decide to do here, because like I said, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we can't know what's going to happen either, but it's going to be interesting to see how this team gels together, how quickly they gel, because you can't just, even though this is the NBA, you cannot put just people together and expect things to happen magically. It doesn't work that way. You have to know what system you're going to run. And let's be honest here, Brooklyn, just like the Bulls, we'll get to later, they cannot play any defense. And we know Mike D'Antoni, who's the lead assistant, defense is a curse word to him. It's all about offense and getting up shots in 7 seconds or less as far as the shot clock is concerned. Whenever Kyrie comes back, whose game was going to suffer the most? Will it be Durant, which I doubt? Will it be Kyrie, which I think it will be? Or will it be James Harden, which I think he may take a slight step back? But we all know that when he gets the ball, he's not going to pass it back.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to jack up shots and he likes to draw fouls and go to the free throw line, which is good. But will that his style of play be serviceable to the team long term? I don't think so. At least as of right now.
Well, also too his physique, right? I mean, we all been making fun of Harden's physique. I mean, like I said a few weeks back, he looks like Rick Ross basically. Now, it'll be interesting to see like how fast he kind of gets himself back into shape, because you can see he kind of let himself go and just got lazy. And well, we'll see now that he's in a new city. Will he kind of feel rejuvenated? Will he be on? Will he kind of get himself into basketball shape, which will probably take maybe a few weeks for him to do that. So, but if you look at what happened in Houston last night, I mean, they were able to pull off a kind of a minor upset, beating the Spurs. And you heard Steven Silas say that, look, it kind of feels like, the team's more relaxed now. There's a lot, little more discipline now. So maybe we may see Houston sort of become the Renaissance, and sort of maybe not necessarily a challenge for the West, but maybe sort of battle for one of those bottom four spots and perhaps maybe one of the play-ins.
Yeah, I can see Houston being a competitive team. And like I said, their roster is not bad at all, especially with adding Victor Oladipo via the James Harden trade. We all know that Victor Oladipo is a scorer. We saw that a little bit with Oklahoma City, but he had a chance to blossom with the Indiana Pacers for the last few years before injuries took a toll on him. So the question with Oladipo is, can he stay healthy? And number two, how good will Houston will be, because that's going to take some time for that talent to mesh as well with John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. Remember, both of them didn't play last year due to their various injuries. So Houston could still be a competitive team, but they got to stay healthy. And Steven Silas, who's the son of Paul Silas, he's been an assistant coach for a long time. And this is finally his opportunity. He can now breathe, have fresh air in his lungs, so he can coach the way he wants to coach. You don't have to have with any disciplinary issues with a big superstar acting like a diva. It doesn't have to deal with that anymore.
Also, to the Pacers, I mean, Malcolm Brogdon has actually been playing well for the Pacers. We all thought that maybe, like, what is he thinking going to Indiana? But it looks like maybe he was smart about it. And, Sabonis had 23, in their win against Portland. Portland's a very strange team. We'll get to them in a little bit, but Portland's a very strange team. But look, the Pacers are 8-4. They look really good out east, and we'll see if not having Oladipo will hurt them long term. But at least right now, it looks like they've been playing pretty well so far.
Yeah, they've been playing pretty well. Also, another team that's starting to turn around in the Eastern Conference is the Toronto Raptors. They had a big win over Michael Jordan's Charlotte Hornets on Thursday, 111-108. Of course, Bob Scher for Toronto led the team with 25 points and 10 rebounds. Of course, I watched the last couple of the games of Toronto. I think we touched on it on our last episode, Lakeena. They lost a couple of close games, tough games on their West Coast road trip to Golden State and to Portland. Pascal Siakam missed potential game winners in both those games. Of course, you don't blame him, but Toronto, they're still a good team, but this is the time for them to turn around. It was a big win for them on Thursday against Charlotte. Like on the other side for Charlotte, as we mentioned also on our last episode, that is a good, fun team to watch. Scary Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, the free agent pickup. Of course, LaMelo Ball. Hopefully he can keep his head on straight, which I think he will, and his daddy staying out of the spotlight. Things should be fine for Charlotte.
No, oh yeah, absolutely. And they've lost 4 in a row, but you know what? They had a kind of a hot start, so you kind of figured they were going to come back to earth a little bit. Of course, sort of like the hot teams right now. Of course, the teams you thought would expect to be hot. Lakers have won 4 in a row. The Celtics, even though all the issues they've had, they've won 4 in a row too. They kind of everyone's sort of starting to kind of get back into a routine, because unfortunately, COVID has kind of becoming, rampant here. A couple of games have been postponed for tonight between Washington and Detroit, and also Golden State and Phoenix. Both those games have been postponed due to various COVID issues and contact tracing and things like that. So, and then, the Bulls have had a couple of games postponed because of COVID. They actually are in action tonight against OKC. So do you think that will COVID be an issue? You know, because I'm sure I've heard people say that they've had to kind of get back on the bubble, and of course the NBA has now kind of changed some of the tactics of how people can, how players, which of course David Lillard had a lot to say about that, and basically because of what happened with Kyrie, that's probably one of the reasons why they did this. Even before all these other rapid testing. So, what do you think about that?
I was watching television yesterday, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. I was Brian Windhorst, was the NBA insider for ESPN. He said this perfectly. When the NBA was in a bubble last summer, they can control everything. Now they're not in the bubble, they can't. With the tighter restrictions and things going on, they're trying to keep the virus out as much as possible. You're not going to be able to do that because you're not in the bubble. So with the tighter restrictions, and the players are complaining like, you can't let us live our lives and things along that line. But the players knew coming into the season that their access and the way they live outside of the arena is going to be tested, and they had to be strictly disciplined in order not to contract this virus and spread it to their teammates and other personnel within their organization. So the NBA is doing all they can, but I don't think they can absolutely keep it out. Now, do I think it's going to be some more postponements? Yes. Do I think it's going to be as bad as college basketball and college football when they started, i.e. the Pac-12 joining in the party late? I don't think it's going to get to that point, but you're just going to have to power through this thing, and hopefully it doesn't get too bad where the 72-game season is cut short. And this is the reason why they split the 72-game season, Lakeena, partially because, with the postponement of games or what have you, hopefully it doesn't spread throughout the league. So, but I'm not too worried. They're going to power through this thing, but like I said, from what we know now as of this recording, I think there's going to be a few more postponements, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as people making it out to be. The NBA can only do so much.
Well, and let's also remember too, Sid, I mean, yes, we got the vaccine, but like we've been saying, it's going to take a while for it to be widely distributed. I mean, the essential workers, the doctors, people like that will get first priority, and then maybe perhaps people over 70 and maybe people who have pre-existing conditions or at high risk if they decide to do it. But we're talking maybe not till like the spring, like maybe May and June at the earliest. That it'll be,
and that's when the playoffs start this year for the NBA, May 22nd, I believe.
Yep. So
who knows what's going to happen there? I'm not predicting doom and gloom. I don't think it's going to go that far. But like you said, as far as vaccine availability, of course, all these teams have people that can give it to them right away. But like I said, it's going to be a while for their players and everybody else in the organization. At least the players will be available to get it.
I mean, absolutely, and I think this is going to be to the point. We're at this point where like we knew this was going to happen. It's right after the holidays. Guys were able to kind of move. Go to maybe perhaps visit family and friends. They even put a rule in where you can't be around like girlfriends or side chicks. Basically, I'm trying to word this as sensitively as I can, Sid. But I mean, they kind
I know it's a family show.
Yeah, I know. We have to keep like PG at least. But I mean, like you said, so these are grown men. You can't tell them where to go, but you got to be aware and be mindful. And look, we're seeing it with non-athletes where people are going to places without masks. We have people traveling, going into planes, knowing that this is still running rampant. And now we know there's another strain that's coming from Britain that actually has made its way here. They just confirmed a case about an hour ago, that more contagious case. So look, we're like I said, we're right in like the 30-yard line when it comes to COVID, but we just gotta keep pushing and have to keep being vigilant.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown as we talk basketball, the NBA, and the Chicago Bulls. Let's transition over to the Chicago Bulls for a moment, Lakeena. Of course, as you mentioned earlier, their game against the Boston Celtics was postponed this past Tuesday because the Celtics didn't have enough players to field the team because of their COVID issues. Of course, the Bulls have a 2-game Texas swing this weekend. It starts on Friday with at Oklahoma City Thunder, of course, Sunday at Dallas. what are you looking forward to these two games this weekend, Lakeena? Not in terms of victories, it would be nice, but who are you looking for from this Bulls team to step out and have a big time performance against these two teams?
I'm fascinated to see if Patrick Willis can kind of keep up, the great play he had. It's going to be interesting too with the whole team because they haven't played in like 4 or 5 days. So when they play OKC tonight, it's going to be interesting to see how they look because I'm sure there's going to be some rust there because they haven't played like gameplay in like the last 4 or 5 days. But I'm dying to see what Wendell Carter does. Can he keep up with his play? He's been playing better. Will Zach LaVine be Zach LaVine? And remember, Laurie's coming back too. So how is that dynamic? They've actually shown they actually play better without him. I'm not dissing Laurie or anything. That's just you look at the statistics and the win percentage. I mean, they're over when he plays. So we'll see. But I'm kind of to see what the entire team and how they look. We see how they do against the LA teams. These guys are sort of like in the middle of the road sort of teams. OKC has been kind of playing a little bit better lately. So I want to see how they do against sort of the middle of the road. They may win one of these games. Who knows?
I'm glad you brought up the Laurie marketing point because he will return, as you mentioned, against Oklahoma City. He may be thrown into the starting lineup. I'm interested to see, one, how he plays, and number two, what's the rotation going to be from head coach Billy Donovan, because in his absence, like you said, Patrick Williams has had more minutes. Zach LaVine has taken more of the scoring load. Of course, off the bench, I've been praising these two players all year long, Daniel Gafford and Otto Porter Jr. Those are the two guys that have been great off the bench for the Bulls this year. And so I want to see if that changes or if it keeps up or takes it to another level. We should see about that. Kobe White again. Can he continue to improve as a playmaker? We all know that he can score the basketball, but can he continue to take steps forward to become a serviceable playmaker? Like I said, he's not going to be John Stockton, but can he take another step or two to become that serviceable playmaker for this Bulls team?
Yeah, I'm looking for also their defense too. I mean, their defense is they still got a lot to do with their defense. Everyone has said it, so we'll see how they do. I mean, whether they go 1-1 or 2-0, or maybe they lose both of these games against OKC and Houston. But I just want to see like the fight. You're not gonna. I know people or I know the Bulls fans are sort of a little because they're 4-7, but okay, you know what though? I'm okay with them being 4-7 because I know I'm getting a fight from these guys every game. You're not gonna, beat these guys up by 20 or 30 points like we've seen the last few years. You're gonna get a fight from this team from start to finish. And if they can keep that up, I think, look, you're feeling the excitement. Like we talked with Jason earlier. He said, look, I'd rather talk about the Bulls right now because the stock's pointing up. So I'm with him on that front too. So I'm looking forward to these games to see how they do against sort of these not necessarily like kind of middle of the pack Western Conference teams.
And also too, looking forward to the games this weekend for the Bulls. I'm looking forward to that Sunday game against Dallas because we all know what the Bulls did a couple of weeks ago when Dallas traveled here to Chicago. Zach LaVine went off, especially in that first half, and that's what carried the Bulls to defeat the Mavericks. Of course, Luka Doncic didn't play in that where he sat out due to quote-unquote rest. I'm assuming that he's going to play this Sunday. I want to see him and Zach go at it. And Zach LaVine, he wants to be the leader of the team. He wants to be considered one of the best young superstars in the game. You had to bring your best against your best competition on the floor every night. Hopefully Luka will play on Sunday. Let's see if he brings out the best in Zach LaVine.
Should be very interesting and entertaining. So what other stuff in the NBA has got you pumped?
Looking at that game from Thursday on TNT, the Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets. I've been cautioning folks not to worry about the Nuggets. Seems like they're starting to get back on a roll right now. They defeated the Warriors on Thursday in a close one. Nikola Jokic seems like he's getting his game back into form. Jamal Murray, he needs to pick it up. I do believe in him. So the Nuggets will be fine. Now, the Warriors on the flip side, of course, people are looking forward to Steph Curry trying to take over the franchise since he doesn't have Klay Thompson anymore. He's going to be fine, but he has to stay healthy. Draymond Green has to stay healthy as well. I think the Warriors still can be one of those teams that just sneak in that 7th or 8th spot. But they're going to have to, I'm not going to say play near perfect basketball, but that's what it feels like. They're going to have to play near perfect basketball if they stay healthy. But these two guys needs to step up for the Warriors. Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre Jr., who they picked up before the season started.
Yeah.
Those two guys have to step up. If they both step up and provide a huge, significant scoring, the Warriors should be fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And for me, I think Dallas, they've won 4 in a row. Luka's back. I want to see how they do against the Bulls. Remember, Luka wasn't there. They didn't play that time, early a couple of weeks back. So I want to see how they do with Luka in the lineup with Dallas pretty much at full strength. I know, Kristoff's still kind of inching his way back. Of course, both LA teams, the Lakers and the Clippers, they're gonna do their thing. I'm not I'm not too freaked out by them. I have to say though, like I said earlier, Portland's one of the weirdest teams. I mean, right? I mean, I really honestly don't know what to think of this Portland team, Sid. I mean, I saw a little bit of their game last night and against the Pacers, and just the Pacers basically just rolled them. And I know that Jim Boylan's actually there as their defensive advisor, however you want to say it. So it clearly is not working. And I apologize to all you Blazers fans, but Portland is sort of one of those teams that kind of has me scratching their heads. I'm glad that the Raptors are starting to kind of slowly but surely getting back, get together. Also the Rockets, maybe now that Harden's gone, like we said earlier, maybe they can kind of, get back into gear here now that they don't have to worry about that drama anymore. So that bottom tier of the Western Conference, I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, it's going to be a dogfight for the entire season. And going back to your point about Portland, Lakeena, I did watch some of their game the other night when they played Sacramento. Don't sleep on the Sacramento Kings.
Oh no,
I know they were, I know they were invited to the bubble last year. Of course, they didn't make the playoffs, but I know Sacramento's 5-7 right now. I know Portland beat them the other night. But Sacramento has some good young talent. And Halliburton, of course, you had Buddy Hield still there. Of course, Harrison Barnes, a championship veteran from that Golden State team from 2015 when they won the title. So they have some nice young pieces. And Luke Walton is the perfect coach for that team. Now, can they finally get over that 500 mark? I'm not sure, but they're an interesting team to watch right now. And actually, like their broadcast team as well, with Mark Jones of ESPN and Doug Christie. Oh, they've been stepping up so far this year.
Oh yeah, they've been. Oh yeah, I heard like a couple of their games. So yeah, they've been really good. Like I said, OKC, they've lost a couple in a row, but it looks like they're starting to get it together too. That's who the Bulls face tonight. The Knicks have kind of fallen back to earth a little bit. They've lost 4 in a row.
Stay up.
Exactly, and you wonder though too, is that stuff starting to kind of fall on deaf ears now? Because we saw it here with we're here with the Bulls and some of the other teams Tiz has been at. I mean, they get together for a little bit, then everything kind of just falls flat, so like a cake. So I don't know what's happening with them. Miami, I know our buddy Alana Tashauer, I know I've seen her tweet. She's very getting very antsy about with the Heat right now. So but I mean, I'm sure they'll get it together too. So like I said, I think we're only like about a month into this. We're not even a month into the season yet. These teams have not even played like 10 or 11, 12, 13 games because the schedule has been kind of like all over the place because of COVID and such. So I think we should wait like another maybe a week or two before we start sort of really see, like, with the exception of kind of the top tier teams, like who kind of like also sort of make a challenge in that respect.
Yeah, and also, too, going back to the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee just got Giannis Antetokounmpo back, a.k.a. the Greek Freak, so they're 8-4 right now. So in their last 10 games, of course, they're 7-3. Philadelphia, I know we talked about them last week, and they had a bad showing against the hapless Brooklyn Nets on national television. They got blown out, but they starting to turn it around now. They're number 2 in the East with a 9-4 record. But the bottom half of this Eastern Conference, it can and I think will be interesting. In the 4th spot, you have the Pacers at 8-4. Of course, they made that trade involving Victor Oladipo. Of course, the Orlando Magic are there 6-5. Of course, Markelle Fultz, as we talked about in our last podcast, he's out for the year with an injury. Yeah. The Brooklyn Nets are 7-6, but as soon as their issues, they can straighten them out in the chemistry, they'll be better than 6. I guarantee you that. The Atlanta Hawks been at 500 at 5-5. They've been kind of up and down. The Charlotte Hornets are at number 8 at 6-7. So I think the East bottom half could be fun as well. But looking at those other Eastern Conference teams from the outside, looking at, do you have faith in the Cleveland Cavaliers? I don't. Do you have faith in the Detroit Pistons? They are terrible. Dead last at 2-9. No. Washington, I know they've been dealing with injuries, i.e. Russell Westbrook. Bradley Beal, his days may be numbered. We've been saying that for the last couple of years. Do you have faith in them making a run? No. Toronto at 3-8, they possibly can make a run. In Miami, I think they'll be better as well. I don't know as far as NBA Finals better, but I think they'll turn it around. Those two teams, Miami and Toronto, I have faith in those two teams turning it around. But there's all the other bottom-feeding teams outside that 8th playoff spot. I don't see it.
Yeah,
I know, like you said, we did fairly right now, but I just don't see it.
Free Bradley Beal. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, at least he's not demanding a trade at this point. I mean, we'll see in about a month. We'll see if that happens. If Westbrook comes back and they're still kind of like not where they should be. So I'm looking forward to see what they do. Maybe the Warriors can get it together. I don't know, but look, Denver. Going out west for a second, Denver needed that win. Needed that win against Golden State desperately. Utah, they've won 3 in a row, so they've looked really good. The bottom half of the West, I mean, San Antonio's had their struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So has Memphis. New Orleans have been kind of disappointed. I mean, they had a hot start early on, but they've kind of
Zion was hurt, and then going back to Memphis, John Moran's still out with his injury. So
they've definitely been having their issues too. So. We'll see. I mean, Minnesota, I know Karl Anthony Towns has had some of his injury issues too. So that I'm kind of just see what they do. I mean, it's it's kind of hard, trying to figure out Minnesota though, no doubt.
That's what happens when you're in a rebuilding mode. I know you have D'Angelo Russell over there now, so we'll see what happens with that. Going back to the Bulls real quickly, Keena. I think the OKC game is very winnable. We'll see what happens with that. Dallas is going to be tougher, especially if Luka Doncic plays, because like we mentioned before, we all know what happened a few weeks ago here in Chicago. So I think it's going to be a totally different story. So I'm looking for the Bulls to be competitive over the weekend in this quick Texas two-step road trip.
Yeah, should be very interesting. So really quick synopsis of the national championship game. Of course, congratulations to Alabama. They've won, I think it's like their 14th, national championship game. It's Nick Saban's 7th national title. Look, we were pretty much.
He does not need the NFL.
No,
folks.
he does.
Let me just put that out there right now.
Oh, no,
why do you want to go back to the NFL where you have less control?
Oh no, he's not. Oh, I doubt I'm sure he's learned his lesson. He's not going anywhere. He's going to ride that Bama train until the wheels fall off.
As well as he should.
Look, Devontae Smith had 3 touchdowns in the first half. Remember, he did not play in the second half because he got nicked up with his hand, or I think it was his finger. I think more one of his fingers. I think nicked up. But we haven't heard anything else about it. So, but that was pretty much a dominating game. Perhaps personally, I would have preferred a Bama Clemson Part 15. Because I know that Ohio State was out a couple of their guys on defense, right? I mean. But it just, from the word go, it just, Alabama dominated pretty much.
If you're Ohio State, could you have borrowed Chase Young from the Washington football team to play in that game this past Monday? I'm just saying. Maybe you would have had a shot, but like you said, Alabama, congratulations to them. That was a dominating performance from start to finish, putting up a 50-piece. And the way they played, Ohio State was lucky to get 24 points. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Christian Harris, led the team. Both him and Dylan Moses, they tied with 6 tackles apiece. Christian Barmore had 5 tackles as well, had the lone sack. So it was just pretty much, Alabama dominated from start to finish. They totally deserved, to win the championship. But I think, Nick Saban has, if he hasn't already, he's cemented himself as probably one of the best college coaches of all time.
Yeah, he's right up there. Paul Bear Bryant, Bo Schembechler.
Yeah.
Excuse me, all the legends. Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah. So, kind of a sort of anticlimactic that game was. Just saying. Let's go to the college hardwood right quick. Michigan. Look, that game a couple of days ago against Wisconsin. I saw. Wait, they shot. I mean, they looked really good. Juwan Howard's got his guys balling, and I guess the bracketology, they got him as a 1 seed right now. I don't know if that'll still be the case, but we still got a lot of season left. But they looked really good.
Yeah, I DVR'd that game the other night. Lakeena, I thought that, well, I'm gonna watch a competitive game. I'm guilty of this. Yours truly has to say this right now. I did see the highlights on Sports Center. I saw the final score. I'm like, what the hell? We all know Wisconsin's good, but to get blown out in Chrysler Arena, my goodness. But like you mentioned, Howard had those young men playing well right now. Will they stay atop the Big Ten? It's going to be tough, but give them credit. They had the perfect game plan for Wisconsin the other night. When you shoot the ball well, you usually win 9 times out of 10. Now, going back to our home state team, the Illinois Fighting Illini, they have a big game on Saturday morning or early Saturday afternoon on the East Coast on Fox against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Of course, Illinois had a game against Nebraska that was postponed the other night due to Nebraska's issues with COVID. Of course, the Illini in their previous game last Sunday night, they are coming off a loss to Maryland, which was a bad loss at home down in Champaign. I want to see how they start off early against this Ohio State Buckeyes team.
Yeah, the Ohio State, if they're shooting their threes, they are very tough to beat. So that'll be a tough one there for Illinois. Michigan, they go at Minnesota. So Richard Pitino has his guys balling too. So that's gonna be a tough one for them. And can they knock them out the ranks of the unbeaten Minnesota?
Yeah, like you said, this Big Ten, we talked about it the last couple of episodes, Lakeena. It's going to be competitive, the Big Ten, especially now with the games some games are being postponed throughout the country. Whoever sticks around and survives, they're going to be the winner of this thing. So it's going to be a long, hard fight. You just have to dig yourself out of it and hang in there.
Absolutely. Baylor and Texas Tech, that should be a good one tomorrow afternoon on ESPN. And the ACC got Virginia and Clemson. Clemson's been playing very well, so is Virginia too. Will that be like first at 50 wins that game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, there'll be a good one there. Villanova, I think they're back in action, I think Sunday, I believe, for the first time in like 2 weeks because of COVID issues and such. So, but then you have Houston. Houston's having COVID issues too. All their games have been postponed. They haven't played with like a week and a half. So, I mean, COVID's freaking happening in college hoops, Sid. I mean, we warned that this was going to happen. And there have been some postpones and cancellations. Indiana, Michigan State for Sunday has been postponed. Southern Illinois had a game against Valparaiso. That's been postponed too because of COVID issues in the Valpo's program. SMU, they're having COVID issues too, so they've had to pause. So what do you think about all this?
Like I said, whoever sticks together and survives this thing is going to be the ultimate winner. Whoever defeats COVID, as we say, as Lamont says, they're going to survive. One game I'm really looking forward to, I think this will be my first time trying to watch a game from start to finish, and that's the Gonzaga Bulldogs. They're 13-all, ranked number 1 in the country. They'll take on St. Mary's on Saturday night on ESPN at 9 p.m. St. Mary's is 9-4, and Gonzaga is 13-0. Give credit to Mark Few. I don't know how he does it, but he keeps that program at a high level in a small market every year outside of Seattle, Washington.
Win it all in the tournament. That's always been my thing with Gonzaga. I mean, it's fine. You go undefeated, your conference, go undefeated, going to this point of the season. That's fine, but do it in the tournament. That's a show. I'm in Missouri now. Show me. Missouri's playing pretty well right now. Show me.
Yeah.
Show me. I'm at that point where show me. Do it in the tournament, and then you'll get my respect.
Yeah, I know they reached the Final Four a couple years ago against North Carolina, and they came up short. But like you said, you had to be consistent when they to show up in big time games. So that's what we're looking for from Gonzaga. Sunday morning on CBS as of now. Number 5 Iowa will travel to Evanston to take on Northwestern. Northwestern is 6-5, 3-4 in the Big Ten. This is again another hot start for Chris Collins, but they struggled the last couple of weeks. I don't know if they can turn around against an Iowa team who I think is next to Michigan is the top 2 team in the Big Ten right now, especially with that potential player of the year Garza.
Yeah,
he can play.
Yeah, Luka Garza. I mean, whoever's got to guard him for Northwestern, sheesh.
We'll send our best.
I feel bad for whoever that is, like
Yes.
they're like hot potato or something. But yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. And like we've been saying, COVID's run rapid. Some programs have had to pause. South Carolina, Frank Martin, our best to him. He got diagnosed again with COVID, so they've had to pause again their basketball activities. So we wish our best to some of the other programs have had to pause. So hopefully they can, this will get past. They can get back on the court.
Yep.
All right, the Hawks, Sid, really quick. I'm just glad they didn't get shut out by the Lightning. They play again tonight. So yay! Like that look, they've already exceeded my expectations. But look, Kirby Doc and also Jonathan Toews are now on IR, their version of IR, where they're gonna miss about like a third of the season. So I'm just hoping if we could just soldier on. If we can get a win, I know it's not gonna help, not gonna work, but I'm hoping that we can at least make it competitive against the Lightning. I mean,
yeah, we'll probably have more on the Hawks on our next episode. But like you said, Lakeena, scoring may not be the issue eventually, but your goaltending issue will be an issue. Of course, Malcolm Subban started on Wednesday, did not look good. It's going to be a carousel all season long, guys. I'm not saying you're going to be Detroit and have the worst record in the NHL. Maybe it won't be the bad thing for the Hawks. I don't know. But it's going to be a struggle this year. But those young kids, they're going to fight and play hard. Maybe they get lucky. Maybe they don't. I doubt it. But we're all waiting and seeing, and we're going to find out together. So, like I said, we'll probably have more on the Blackhawks on our next episode next week.
Yeah. So a couple of White Sox notes. Lance Hendricks, the newest Liam Hendricks, I should say, Lance Hendricks, Liam Hendricks, the newest White Sox, middle relief guy. You got guys, look, you never have too many bullpen guys, especially if you're the White Sox. So what about that move?
It's a great move for the White Sox on paper. Me personally, I thought this should have kept Alex Colomé, but for whatever reason, they decided to move on from him. But you get a better closer in Hendricks. He shuts guys down. He was one of the top relievers in the American League last year with Oakland, has been for the last couple of years. And now that bullpen on paper looks stacked, especially toward the end of that bullpen. You can have your backup, your setup guy, and Aaron Bummer, who's your left-hander, and you come in with a right-hander in the ninth inning with Hendricks. Tony La Russa has some toys to play with now in that bullpen, which was not bad last year, even though they were dealing with injuries, especially toward the end of the regular season. With the full boat, Tony La Russa has parts to play with, and you gotta love it.
Oh yeah, he'll definitely have his toys to play with too, and I'm sure he's gonna take full advantage, Mr. La Russa. I know I've had my druthers about him being hired, but look, you got a veteran guy that knows what to do and has the toys to do it, so he'll definitely have his choices.
Yeah, pressure's going to be on Hicks, especially now playing in the bigger market.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I think he's already called it the South Side slider, so I think he's proven that he can handle it. A couple of quick.
As long as the opponent swing and miss at him, that's fine by me. Just don't have him land in left and right field, and I'm good.
Okay, what do you think about the coaching stuff so far? Robert Saleh is now with the Giants. Urban Meyer's now with the Jags, and some reports are coming out saying that Dan Campbell is the favorite. The San Francisco coach Dan Campbell is a favorite to get to be the new Lions coach.
Real quick, Robert Saleh, he's with the Jets. He's going to bring a new energy to that team. I'm interested to see who they're going to draft with their first-round pick. Will it be Justin Fields or will it be somebody else? Will they keep Sam Darnold? Who knows? But I think he's going to do fine with the Jets. Of course, his defensive units with the San Francisco 49ers over the last 3-4 years have been tops. The Jets' defense, they still need a pass rusher, but they need to start fixing the offense. So this is going to take another year or two. Now, the other coaching hire, Urban Meyer with Jacksonville, is going to be Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. So that's why he's down there. So, and that's going to take some time as well. So Jacksonville, they have James Robinson, their running back. He looks like he's going to be a nice piece. They still need another stud wide receiver. I know DJ Shark is good, but you need somebody else to go alongside him. And you got to revamp that defense. I know Miles Jack is still there from a couple years ago. You still need a couple more pass rushes, so it's still going to take some time down there in Jacksonville.
Well, very interesting, though, too, nonetheless. Real quick, what are you looking forward to this weekend?
Of course, NFL playoffs, the divisional round. I think all those games are going to be competitive. Of course, everybody's talking about Breeze and Brady on Sunday. That's going to be the marquee game. I'm actually looking forward to the Saturday games, and that's going to be a whole lot of fun as well. So I'm looking forward to those two games. Of course, in back to basketball, can the Bulls keep up the fight and perhaps turn it around and start winning some of these games down the stretch?
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm sure they can. I hope that at least get a fight from. Let's get that fight going. I'm looking forward to both the divisional round games. I mean, they both look very exciting. We may see an upset, maybe two. Who knows? More baseball moves. We're seeing more and more of these moves. DJ LeMahieu just got a big contract, $90 million with the Yankees. That's all pretty much a ball but official, so that'll be interesting too. Also a little bit of soccer too, a little Premier League. Got Liverpool and Man U for battle for first place at the top of the table. So on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to that one as well. So a busy sports weekend too, Sid. So in mid-January, you gotta love it.
Yes, you have the love, and that's why we do what we do, so we can bring you our thoughts and expert analysis. And we also tell you what you can see looking ahead. So this is the fun time of year, especially in football, and so it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're no fortune tellers, folks. Don't take our piss at face value.
Sure, when it comes to the Bears.
Exactly. So on that note, you can follow me.
We should not say it too much.
Exactly. You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can go to our website at weareregalradio.com. That's, WEAREREGAL radio.com. You can also catch our podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming from War Media in the scope of Josh Hitch, what Kyle Means does, That David Show, and Flippin' Friends, and all other special programming via the podcast. You should simply search for War on Anchor wherever you download your podcast, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. And we're also on YouTube at War Media, once again, at WARR Media. You can also watch our podcast. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live.
All right, like, share, and
I'll just start doing this from now. Like Blind Divas, throwing kisses to the crowd.
Oh gosh.
Like, comment, share, subscribe. Like, comment, share, subscribe.
and on that note, though, guys, enjoy the sports. Keep your hands clean. We're almost there, though, guys. We're almost there. So you just gotta wear your mask and keep your hands clean, keep your distance. So for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you next week.
See you next time. Holla!